hit the call this fall because we have a volunteer stick
Check,
well
check,
for you,
check.
so.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the January 16th Wyndham Raymond School District Board of Directors. Mr. Howell?
Kate Briggs.
Present.
Eric Colby.
Here.
Janie Cummings.
Here.
Don Dillon. Pete Hensler.
Here.
Anna Keeney. Kate Levier.
Here.
Scott McLean. Here. Danielle Hall.
Will you all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pronunciation.
Okay, we have no adjustments to the agenda other than the ones we've already talked about. And that we now have a time for public input. Anybody in the public want to input?
Good evening. I'm Rebecca Cole. I teach first grade at Wyndham Primary School. I'm a Wyndham resident and past Wyndham parent. I also am the president of Sebago East Shore Education Association, and I represent District I for the Maine Education Association, covering Gardner to Wyndham. And I just wanted to advise the board, if you were not already aware, that for another year, the Maine Education Association president, who is now Grace Levitt, who is a Raymond resident, has procured a grant to provide a book for every first grader in the state of Maine. I have some of them in my vehicle, and Mrs. Levitt will be delivering them in our district as well. So I just wanted to make the board aware that that
That's
exciting thing is happening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I like that kind of public input.
You didn't know what I was going to say.
I didn't. We now have Dr. Kyle Rhodes, who's going to talk to us about Wyndham Primary School.
Well, first, I'm glad for the opportunity to speak with the board tonight about what's going on at Wyndham Primary. There's some really amazing work going on, some of which you've been aware of, and so some of that's going to be old news, but good news. And then there's some really exciting new things going on as well. So there's a paper copy of my update. I also believe that Terry was going to try to electronically get it to you, because I had some links that I wanted you to be able to kind of see what would actually look like and what was going on. And the way I organized it tonight was, and I hope it's helpful, was to think about our strategic plan and look at the 3 goals and take you through what we're doing for work in all 3 areas. And I think I'm right in saying I've got 20 minutes.
Correct.
Okay, and so I won't go 20 minutes because I want to give you the opportunity to have time for questions. So looking at goal 1, the design for learning, one of the exciting pieces of the work that has been started in kindergarten for 3 years now and has moved on now to first grade is really taking a close look at the data around literacy and looking at it on an ongoing basis. We often think of school being, trimester or quarter-based, and that's when we report out on student successes and their strengths and their weaknesses. Our data wall is something that is getting data inputted in on a regular basis throughout the school year. So administration and the teachers can look at it at any time to really determine what to do next for learners. We've dedicated at least 30 minutes a day where that instruction is targeted and is based on the data from the wall. That's work, like I said, it's been going on for kindergarten for a few years, and now we've transitioned to have it be kindergarten and first grade. And that also helps us with how we group our students. We've got data at other grade levels that we use through our Illuminate data management system, which helps with how we group our learners throughout the day. The other piece, though, that's important to know is that we've taken a different look at our schedule just recently. We know we've got district requirements on how much time per week students should be getting instruction in literacy, how much instructional time you're getting math and writing. However, where a master schedule is built is similar to what at other schools would happen, where there's an hour-long block a day for literacy, an hour-long block a day for math. What we've done is given communication to teachers that they can look a little differently at it and look at it more in a week span. So on a certain day, if they want to do a project that takes 90 minutes and it's literacy based, take the 90 minutes that day and do it, and then have a longer block for math or writing another day. Another approach that a team was talking about today was the learners that they have in their setting. It's a co-teaching model that they're using with special education, and they're seeing some of the learners keeping their attention for that time span is difficult. So they have created their schedule for their 2 classrooms to be in smaller chunks of time, but still meet the requirements. So it's looking differently at how you group kids, grouping those learners, but also how you use the time with them. So that's pretty exciting to me because that fits right into that goal 1, being creative about how we use our time, because we'd all love more time. The reality is it's hard to get. So, and then this past June, I want to say it was, I want to say it was part of our summer camp, the 3 days we had after school got out for the students, where we had a training on a systematic phonics program called Jolly Phonics. Overseas, it's used quite frequently in schools. And our kindergarten teachers were very excited about trying to implement it this year, starting at the beginning of the school. And our kindergartners are our youngest learners, so doing anything new, on the teaching side the first year is a little bit of a risk. So kudos to the kindergarten teachers for wanting to do that. We've had great success data-wise with the use of the Jolly Phonics, and we're continuing to use it. So our data wall reflects the success that our learners are having. Anecdotally, I am so impressed with the confidence of the kindergartners when it comes to writing. I mean, the confidence is there for reading because this is a phonics program, but it's transferred over to how they write. They are writing with more production, more confidence, and those are things that as a former kindergarten teacher, I always was a challenge. But you were always excited when you could celebrate that it was happening. With our math coach, Patty Rido, some great work's been happening around the probe work and how it relates to the MEAs. So they've been doing that on a trimester basis. With the writing itself, it's one of our 2 school goals this year. We have a school goal on writing, and I'll talk a little bit later about our other school goal, which is around behavior. Our teachers have met as grade levels at least once, and they'll meet up 3 times this year, where they commonly score writing samples to determine what is the proper score in the specific areas of writing that our students are being instructed with. So that's just a way to get to consistency is the point of that. It also is good professional learning, though, because you're having conversations around writing and writing instructions. So it's really got a couple different purposes, but are really good stuff for us. This is something that's I think is a little unique to primary. Maybe it's happening in other schools. We stole the idea from a district in Pennsylvania. I had gone to a conference and a assistant superintendent talked about it. It's mini grants that are funded through fundraising by our families. We've sponsored 2 mini grants this year. So none of the money's coming from local funding. They were approximately $600 each. One funded one of our kindergarten teams to implement a social thinking curriculum. Teachers across our school had gotten some training from one of our speech therapists on this curriculum, and the funds have allowed them to buy all the materials and resources that are needed for it. And I've been impressed with what I've seen with that work, and I suspect it will expand to at least other kindergarten classrooms. And then the other one was to fund a grant for developing these kits as a group of 3rd grade teachers. The kits are meant so that they can conference effectively in the writing block with their students, and I kind of equate it to some people when they go to work they got to have a toolbox by the side so they can do their best work. Like the carpenter can't just go with a hammer. He's not going to do well with his job. He's going to need a lot of different tools to do this job well. Same thing with writing conferences. You got to have a skill set and you got to have a toolkit. And they physically have this toolkit to help them do that. Their plan with that is to share how they developed it, the learning that went along with it, with the rest of their grade level, and then the hope after that is with the rest of the school. So just some really neat work going on that is parent supported and parent funded. The last piece was I just wanted to share about the Design for Learning goal was our special education coach, Lisa Kennerson, has been working specifically, Melissa Bois, our special education coach, has been working specifically with our special education teachers on how to support the students in the writing classrooms in the regular ed setting and how to help them be successful there, because that's been a concern. And from the conversations I've had with two specific special education teachers, they have felt that's been helpful in helping them understand how to do that well. So I wanted to mention that as well. So let's move on to the goal 2, which is the environment for learning. Kind of a kudos here around this. We were asked this past year on a couple different occasions to have some of our teachers come and present about how we design or how they design the learning environment to be customized and proficiency based for our learners. So I just wanted to mention that, and you can learn more by going to the link. But it was really well received at one of them. I think it was when we were in Pennsylvania. It was standing room only. That's how many teachers and administrators from across the country were interested in learning about what we're doing. So it's certainly a testament to the work of our staff. And just recently, as today, the second bullet there around giving teachers time to plan and think about how to customize the learning. We've been using terminology called the ideal learning experience, working towards having our learners experience when they're learning something ideal. You've heard me talk before about the experience you get when you go to Starbucks, or the shopping experience when you get from Amazon, and how it's customized for you and made so that you want to continue to use that service. That's what we're trying to do for our learners. And so as I was telling a couple groups of our teacher staff, I was really impressed. We've used our last 2 staff meetings to use some of that time to just plan activities that reflect this progressive type of education. So we were fortunate this year with how we create our master schedule to find a little chunk of time to address the social emotional learning. So like I shared earlier, that mini grant would be, that time was used by those teachers to implement that. Teachers across the school are finding time in different times because of the way we used our master schedule to do that. We know how important this is a few decades now that I've been in education. It feels like each year it becomes more important to do this with our learners. So I'm pleased that we were able to do that. Our school goal, the second one, the first one was writing. The second one was around behavior, and really the intent of it was to decrease the amount of behavior referrals as a school that we were receiving, how many calls our student support team was receiving to support learners in the classroom. It truly takes all of us on this goal to have it be successful, because no matter what your role is at primary school, you are a model for our learners. You are one who shows them that you care about them and you want them to succeed, and that's all around that social emotional learning. Pleased to say that we've been tracking the data for these first few months of school, and it's been showing success, and that we've had a decrease in those referrals. So that's what we're looking to do, and we'll continue to reflect on why it's working and improve upon it. I shared about the mini grant already, which has to do with the environment for learning, and something that once again I think may be unique to primary, maybe not. I haven't heard of it anywhere else. However, we've trained a couple of our third graders to be student ambassadors, and so whenever we have a new learner join our school community, they receive within the first couple of days a tour of our building with 3 of our third graders, and it's been really impressive in a couple ways. The 3 student ambassadors take their job seriously and want to do a great job. The reactions of the new learners for us is just precious. You can see they just feel like they're special, because even if they're a third grader, they see that they're being treated as a cared about person at the beginning, and they're getting their questions answered, and they've got some buddies already when they're in the hallway they can wave to each other. So I bring that up because also Sandy had mentioned to me prior to the board meeting tonight that the hope was in the future that principals would bring forward students with me. So that was a little tricky tonight, short notice and being in Raymond. that being said, I would offer up to all of you an open invitation. If you want to take a tour of our school, they're prepared to give adults tours as well. So if you want to come down, and if anything, you'll have a good time with them for sure. They're three great students that reflect well the Windham Primary School. So the last goal is goal 3 around technology for learning, and you know, a couple of things about that is there has been some change for us in technology. You know, as simple as we've had laptops for years, and now those were primarily PC based, and now they're MacBook, so it's Apple based. So there's a learning curve there. So really, that to me has been the primary work going on around technology, and you know. I think it's you know, changes can be difficult, and so that's one platform to another. So you know, we've kind of focused on that piece right there. Another part that you're probably aware from Christine, the curriculum director, sharing the grade 3 implemented the Common Sense curriculum this fall. There's some adjustments we're going to make, not necessarily to the curriculum, but helping teachers get ready to deliver it. We learned a few things from that. And then we've increased the number of iPads in our building. Jolly Phonics is one of the programs that's benefit from that, as well as Lexia. They're literacy-based programs. They're much easier for our younger learners to access using an iPad than a MacBook Air. You know, we sharing earlier about how you know, it's difficult to get more time, and it's such a precious commodity, and so you know, we want our learners to spend less time logging into a program and more time on the program, you know, especially the ones that are showing results for our learners. So that is the update on the goals related to the strategic plan. On the back side of the update is some school events that you know, what I would say here is the purpose is we continue to strive as a school to reach out even more and more to our community. Last year, one of the new pieces we added was a community day. It was extremely wonderful opportunity to get our whole school together. For example, it is rare we get together because we break fire codes when we all try to put ourselves in the gym. So we have to go to the auditorium to do so at the high school. So we were able to find a time to do that, and it was an opportunity for our learners to learn about community. It was also an opportunity for us to give back to some of the organizations that have really supported the Windham Primary School in educating our learners for a while now. So just to kind of recap, the organizations that we sponsored and raised funds were the MSSPA, the Windham Public Library, one of our nursing homes, and then, oh my gosh, now I'm forgetting what the fourth one was. Give me a moment here. There's primary teachers here. Historical, thank you. Windham Historical Society, grade 3. Yeah, so, and then some other events that we've had. We've had 3 fall festivals now, which is a low cost to no cost event for our families. You know, we average between 600 to 800 folks at that every time we've done it. We've had a color dash a few years now. We've added movie nights just this past spring. Movie nights also is a fundraiser for Odyssey of the Mind, which I haven't put in the update. However, Linda Berry, who's our GT teacher, was sharing with me today that we have, let's see if I got this right, 10 teams from Windham Primary. There are a few students who are from Manchester as well, but 10 teams, 9 which are full teams, meaning there's 7 members on each team, and then 1 team that only has 6. So they are practicing right now, and their competitions happen in March. So it's all after school. However, in my opinion, it extends the learning and is getting to many of those 21st century skills to be college and career ready. So that sponsors the movie nights, and Spaghetti Supper sponsor that. We continue to have Family Academy events, which are opportunities for families to come to a nighttime activity. Sometimes the children's activity and the parents and guardians' activities are separate. Sometimes they're together. but they're all education-based. Just to tell you about a few we've had in recent past, we had a cooking night one. We had a Come Learn How Math Works Now night, and we did a school safety. And then just recently we did origami before the holidays, which had, I believe, was between 6 and 8 families with multiple kids from those families, and we all had a ball learning origami. I am challenged by origami. I was able to make a snowman though, so but things are on the up and up at primary, and it was a great experience for me to put together this update, because it helped solidify for me that the work we are doing does reflect the strategic plan that we've all agreed that we need to address. So, good things to come. Time for questions, and I also want to invite up Mrs. Jordan, assistant principal, as she's here tonight too, to help with questions. So, yeah. Sure. So turn it over to you.
So I do have a question as far as the technology piece.
Sure.
You mentioned that there's a learning curve going from PC to MacBook Air, which is certainly understandable. Are you getting any IT support with that learning curve?
Yes.
And can you talk about that?
Yes. Yeah. It's a team, so it's more than one person. In-house though, it's primarily Kirby, who his office is in our building. It's right around the corner from our faculty lounge.
Okay. Which
my anecdotal observations is he's easy access for our teachers when they've got a question. How does this key do? Or how do you make it do that? I see a lot of that going on. However, we've also, from conversations with him, he reaches out and gets help from other IT folks within the district, depending on what the need is. So I do feel confident that we're getting it.
All right.
But we're going to keep monitoring it too as well, because with it being a learning curve, you learn new things, and then that can cause new concerns, right?
Right.
Like I learned that we committed to having smart boards in all of our classrooms, and there's a projector that is needed with those, and most of that funding has come through fundraisers, and some of the original ones don't have the right kind of setups to run some of the Apple devices, like an Apple TV, without a lot of cordage, and that causes its own issues in classrooms. You want to,
Sure.
The wireless is the way to go. So, we're learning about if we're going to replace a projector, which does happen,
Mm-hmm.
that we're making sure we're replacing it with a projector that's going to work. So it is that's the kind of learning that's going on.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
No, I'll let you.
I didn't have my hand up
Oh,
yet. I will,
I'm
but I
being
don't
so
yet.
nice. Thank you for coming tonight. It's really great to hear an update of everything that you're
Pleasure.
doing. I have a question about, am I right, Jolly?
Jolly Phonics, you got
Jolly
it.
Phonics.
Yes.
Okay, wasn't quite sure. Do you know if that was used during the summer with the kiddos that were coming into kindergarten, and I'm just curious whether no?
Yeah, I'm not aware that it was, no.
Do you-
Because that curriculum is set already for Kindergarten Boost, Kindergarten Jump Start.
Yeah,
Yeah, that curriculum is already set.
Okay.
There are some, from observing the summer program and observing teachers implementing the Jolly Phonics, there's some similarity, but not in total.
is there merit in having that during the summer to assist you? during the
I'd have to
school?
look further into that. I'm not sure if there's a part of the program that's meant for preschoolers.
Okay.
So
okay.
I'd have to look into that.
All right.
Certainly something we can investigate for sure.
Thank you.
All right. I'll ask, no, as Kate said, we love to have the updates. Sounds like there's a lot of great work in working towards the goals. Another thing that we like to hear is like some of the challenges that you're still facing. Because as a board, as we shape policy, as we
Right.
start to deliberate the budget, we want to know what ways that we can support you. So what challenges do you still have, whether it's
Yeah.
budget-wise?
Sure. Yeah,
Behavior-wise?
thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
the first thing that comes to mind to me, which has been something that's been on my mind, I would say almost since I got here, was timing of the day. The way the buses arrive and the way the buses leave, it's close to almost an hour-long process. So that is time that if we could get that shortened down even 15 minutes on one end or 15 minutes on both ends, you could pick up between 15 and 30 minutes for instruction. And I'm confident that that would improve the education. So that's the first price that comes to mind, because I really feel like, and Dana's been great bringing fresh eyes to schedule, that we're constantly looking at trying to use the time most wisely. But there's some givens in the day, Pete, that you just can't get around. You got to give kids time to eat, time to have exercise, time to transition to the school day and be ready to leave, because we want them ready when the bus is there too. So some of that natural transition you just have to have. Our first lunch starts at 10:45 and then ends at 1:15. That's a huge portion of our day. That means kids are on the playground during that whole entire time. And then we also try to create another opportunity so a second recess happens before 10:45 and after 1:15. So that'd be the first piece that comes to mind. I believe the other challenge that, and I hear this from other administrators, so I don't think it's just unique to primary. However, is the challenge of the amount of curriculum that may be new or fairly new, and asking teachers to implement those. They're working hard trying to do that. However, just like we know with our young learners, we don't all learn the same way. Some of us need more time than others. Some of us need it given in different ways. It's not the one size fits all for like professional development around that. And so it's how do you figure that all out and still operate the school. So I think that to me is another challenge. The final one that I would share is that we're continuing to look at how we use space. And this is a rough number, but I know Bill and I have talked about this before. Originally the primary was built for, I believe, 630, 680. We've never been that low since I've been there. And if you think about how school was 25 plus years ago and how school is done today and how we're trying to educate our learners, it's completely different. And there's a lot more staff. There's a lot more programming, and just even how we group our learners, like space-wise. The traditional classroom isn't always the best setting for learners to be successful. So I think that's a challenge. I will add this to it. The piece that's a strength is Bill is really good as our facilities director about taking a creative look or listening to other ideas and then running with them. So and at the same time, there's constraints, though. Once you start taking down walls and adding walls, the costs start to add up too. So those are the challenges, though. Really, those three is time, the amount of curriculum implementation, and then just space.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Appreciate the information. One of the things that caught my mind, I know you guys are just starting to get into the, you work hard in the 18 to try to keep budget down, but when you mentioned those 2 mini grants and those being important tools, I guess I just would love to see us making sure that any important tools are, being taken care of instead of having to depend on. I mean, I could be all wet, but I would love to see that if it's an important tool, like you said, or they're carpenter or whatever you are, you've got to have those right tools.
Right. So my response to that is the following. I try to make it clear with teachers: if you have a need or an idea, come talk to me. Especially before if you go somewhere else with it, because maybe there's a place I know about already to tap into a resource so we can get that for you. So that's one piece of it. The other is I believe we're very fortunate at the primary school to have a very supportive community. If you think about the fundraising support we've gotten for a playground, in the last 10 years we've gotten the smart boards. We went from 0 smart boards to every single classroom. I believe there's some creativity and hard work that allows us, if we know what the need is, to figure out a way to make it happen. So that's kind of my response.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Just one more.
Okay.
All right. I wanted to ask you guys, because the topic of conversation has come up around this table a couple of times, as far as recess goes.
Yes.
I haven't had a kid in elementary for a little
Okay.
while, so I don't actually remember.
Yeah, sure.
How many times a day do you typically have recess? What is the number of minutes per session? And if a recess gets canceled, why is it getting canceled, and how do you reschedule that?
Yep. So welcome to Maine, where the weather changes all the time, right?
Yeah.
That's probably one of the biggest challenges. So just to respond to the questions around the data fees. So we have two opportunities. One comes within our lunch recess block. The lunch recess block is approximately 45 minutes long, so about half of that is for lunch and half of it is for a recess. If the weather's good, we go outside. If the weather's not so good, and we've got parameters around that, which I believe we follow very well. So if it feels like less than 10, we're inside. Then you get the other things like, if it's raining, sleeting, lightning, thunder, and a snowstorm, that deters as well from being able to go outside. The second opportunity, we do provide guidance on when to schedule that. However, it is left up to the classroom to do so. Sometimes those opportunities actually take place in the classroom because it could be weather related, it could be timing of it too, and space. So if, for example, we can't use the track for whatever reason, that's often the space that gets used for the second recess. If one of our playgrounds is down because it's icy, then these things kind of limit. Like I was saying already, 10:40 to 1:15, there's already kids on the playground. So you got to kind of look for a second opportunity to happen before that or after that, which doesn't give you a lot of time. It gives you about a 3-hour block to find for 40-something classrooms to get outside. So those were 2 opportunities. They're in our schedule. But the reality is this too. Take this time of year. You've got to put in the transition for getting on snowsuits, getting on jackets, mittens, hats, and do that in an orderly fashion too. Our teachers do an amazing job with it all, and actually our learners do too. But it takes some time. And if you're in C house and you're walking to A house, that's good exercise to take the walk, but you're not using the playground equipment either. So, I understand where parents would have some concern about it. At the same time, I'm confident that our staff values our students getting exercise. I do, and we're trying to do our best to work within the parameters that we have.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, no, really. Just listening.
All right. So it sounds like the
The
afternoon session is really kind of left up to the teachers to really kind of fit it in, but they really have tried to fit it in.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
And it could be in the morning too, though. They
Right.
could. Yeah.
We do budget time on the playground. Like, we try to figure that out ahead of time so we don't have too many classrooms out on the playground at a certain time. So part of the scheduling that we do is try to figure out what time would work. And then we kind of go back to the teachers and they have input if it's not working, like, there's too many classes out here. A lot of times they problem solve on their own, or we can help them with that too. So it's kind of a juggling act. A lot of people like to go out in the afternoon rather than the morning. So trying to work around that is another piece to it. But we do try to offer 2 opportunities to go out and that they have space that's available for them. It doesn't always work great. Like right now we're dealing with some ice issues on some of the playgrounds, so we had to close them for safety reasons. So kids are a little bit more smushed on the other playground, I guess you'd say. So.
Got it. Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Hey, Ron.
Okay, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank
A
you.
lot of great information. Okay. Mr. Patton in the Wyndham Middle School.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity tonight. We have some students here that are going to talk about Jobs for Maine graduates. Just to remind everybody about that, that's a JMG, Jobs for Maine's Graduates, a program that we had been interested in for a period of time. Luckily, at the end of the school year last year, they called us up and let us know about an opportunity through the federal government, through some of their funding, to provide a program for us free of charge. Which has been awesome. A great opportunity for the middle school to complement the high school program. So I would like to invite up Debbie Betchel, who supervises JMG in our particular school, and also the teacher of JMG, Fernando Hinojosa. He has a couple of students with him tonight. They're going to talk about the program, answer some of those questions for you, and then I'll jump back in with some of the other school updates. Come on up.
No, love handouts.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Debbie Bichard, and I'm a regional manager at JMG. I've been with the organization for 12 years, and I provide supervision for staff at 7 of our schools, including Windham High School and Windham Middle School. On behalf of JMG, I just want to say thank you for the partnership with the district. We're really proud to already have a successful program at the high school, including a core program and a MELMAC program, and really pleased that the partnership has now expanded to include this new program at the middle school. And thank you also to Chris Howell, who serves on our board. So JMG partners with public education and private businesses to offer a variety of different solutions for students in supporting a path to high school graduation, post-secondary certificate and credentials attainment, and meaningful careers. And I just wanted to point out that the center graphic piece of the booklet, this was our 25th anniversary celebratory booklet. And in the center graphic, you can see some of our statistics on the organization and student data. We now have programs in each of the 16 counties for a total of 131 programs statewide, and Windham Middle School is one of 23 middle schools throughout the state. And JMG has served over 50,000 students since 1993, and about 9,000 students annually. And we have a 4-year high school graduation rate, which is consistently above 90%, which is higher than the state graduation rate. And I'll keep my comments very brief because I want to move on to Fernando. So last but certainly not least, we consider our specialists a group of folks that really play a very critical role in helping students open the doors to opportunities across the world even. And so it's my pleasure to introduce Fernando Hinojosa, who is our middle school JMG specialist.
Hello everybody, my name is Fernando Hinojosa. I'm the JMG specialist at Windham Middle School. And it's my purpose today to give you a brief overview of the programming that we have at our program. Would it be too meddlesome to put on a slideshow? If so, that's okay. I just had a couple pictures I wanted to show, but it's not necessary. If it is, I don't see any cables here. It probably is. I think we could assume.
Yeah, sorry.
All right, as mentioned, we have power in numbers tonight, which I'm really appreciative for. I'll make sure to introduce one of our students very shortly. In a sense, and so the purpose of the middle school program, to add some more texture to what was said, thank you again, Debbie, is to give our students a supportive environment in which to develop a variety of skills in communication, team building, leadership, and problem solving. We do this by providing equally diverse learning opportunities for these students. Ranging from everywhere between a typical, in-class research project to structured service learning opportunities, to even using their communication strategies to navigate some more unstructured opportunities or unstructured interactions with community members. The learning targets of our program can be tied to our 5 JMG Career Association goals. The Career Association, by the way, is the student-led organization that within our program that is made up of all the students that participate in or who have participated in JMG. In simplified terms, our student body, in essence. You may, for instance, have a student who graduated from the JMG middle school program, but if that student still continues to be part of the family, they continue to have access to personal and career development opportunities through JMG. Anyway, the 5 Career Association goals are thusly: leadership development, career development, social awareness, civic awareness, and community service. All 5 of these goals or learning target categories aim to produce well-rounded, civically engaged youth who will be ready to participate in the workforce of tomorrow. To break this down even further, because I always get the question of what is JMG really? What is JMG really? From the perspective of our kids, the JMG program offers experiential, so hands-on programming that's relevant to their needs and interests. And we're able to offer this by maintaining small, relationship-focused classrooms that prioritize student support and authentic interactions. We do this all with a backdrop of hope in our individual potentials as well as in our futures. We want our youth to graduate from the program with the skills and sense of direction to pursue meaningful careers and promising lives. Anyway, some examples of partnerships. Among our most visible partnerships in the fall semester were our trip to the Great Animal Sanctuary. There's a great picture I want to show, but it's okay. Animal caretakers at the sanctuary toured our students around their campus, not only sharing their passion for their work or volunteer service, but also sharing some information about their particular fields. We also have an ongoing relationship with the Windham Police Department, of course facilitated very much by our SRO, Matt Sear, who himself supported our program directly by serving as a very an exceptional local resource for students who are interested in law enforcement. Some developing partnerships, which I have to say is always an ever-growing list, especially in a program in its first year, are a partnership with the Maine Academy of Modern Music, who will take a day with us in February facilitating a hands-on tour of careers in music and in radio. We're also working on an extended learning opportunity with Cooking Matters, who through April and May, pending dates, will give us a sort of chef-themed extended course to help expose our kids to careers in the culinary arts as well. How are you doing on time? Great. Also, in expanding our network of partnerships, we'd be silly not to include our existing JMG programs. We have one, as mentioned, right at the high school, led by Jen Dumont, the high school JMG program, with whom we're planning a mentorship-focused service project with our 8th graders, who will be the incoming 9th graders, to help them start forming some connections with existing peer leaders at the high school and further facilitate easier transition to the high school. A couple other quick highlights, because I don't want to take too much time here, is we have a broader regional workforce development event in the works with not just the high school, but also a couple neighboring JMG sites at Gorham High and Bonnie Eagle, setting up essentially a large career fair, further enriching our kids' years. And finally, I'd be remiss not to mention, as we ease into these new workforce development connections, that we're working with our MELMAC program at the high school to also increase our students' exposure to other post-secondary alternatives, in addition to these career paths. Finally, let me talk about classroom programming, then we'll do a little bit with one of our students. So, when we're not doing these very big, visible projects, we're doing some things within our classroom that really enrich the kind of work that we do in the community. These sorts of projects include, again, I'm not going to go through the list, a very long list, but autobiographical reflections on personal and career goals, which of course are ever-changing, as we can all relate. That's okay in JMG. Career exploration and research projects, again, tied to student interests. Ever fostering a culture of support and teamwork through team building exercises. Writing actual business letters to actual potential community partners. Basing a budgeting unit on an actual real-world opportunity to create a budget for expanded services in our student store. And the list truly, literally goes on, but I'll stop it right there. A lot of cool stuff that we get to do even just within our school to help further inform the stuff we do in the community. However, it would be remiss of me not to mention the core, perhaps the most definitive, if you're familiar with JMG, piece of programming called the GNAP. And it's at this time that I'd like to invite one of my fellow student helpers to come and introduce himself and tell us a little bit about GNAP. Sean, you can come up. If you're not familiar with GNAP, we're about to see it in action. Before we even talk about what the strange acronym GNAP does, I'm going to have Sean first tell me what his GNAP is.
Greetings, my name is Sean Yates and I'm a grade 7 JMG student. I'm here to tell you about GNAP.
Excellent introduction, right? Textbook, a lost art. GNAP is our stand-in very first lesson in a day, so to speak, of how we introduce ourselves to other people, essentially. Do you want to tell us what GNAP stands for?
GNAP stands for Greetings, Name, Association, and Purpose.
Excellent. Tell us, sure, we'll go right for it. Tell us how GNAP, Sean, how GNAP helps you achieve your personal and career goals. How does GNAP relate to the stuff that we do in our classroom?
Well, whether it be for a business meeting, casual talk on the bus, or even a conversation over the Thanksgiving table, GNAP assures you a proper way to introduce yourself that you can learn in a day.
Excellent. That's beautiful, isn't it? I love that. Thank you, Sean.
Yeah. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
A couple of last thoughts before we wrap up for Mr. or Drew to share some thoughts. Our hope is that each student in our program, through these various pieces of programming, will leave the classroom with pride, with direction and purpose, and knowing what they want in life, essentially, and how they're going to achieve it. No matter the hijinks, big or small, whether it's GNAP, whether it's these bigger, more visible projects, that's the kind of foundation we're trying to build in our students to help carry them towards the meaningful futures that lie ahead of them. So before we break for questions, if there's any questions, I just want to thank you, really, thank you for your time having us here. And I do genuinely invite you to come visit our program, our classroom. Our door truly is open, literally quite a lot of time. Are there any questions that I can take about our program? Again, I know it's an introductory, very brief overview, but I'd be happy to answer more specific questions.
I'm assuming that the website has a whole list of all the programming that you guys offer.
The JMG website does have it somewhat varies, but a list of an introductory list of some of the programming. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Just a comment. I'm pretty wowed by your presentation. So thank you.
Thank you.
Your enthusiasm is wonderful, and kudos. Wonderful, wonderful introduction. Very impressed by your presentation. Takes a lot, let me just tell you, even adults kind of shaking their boots coming up to the podium, and you did a marvelous job, so congratulations.
Truly.
Well done. I'm impressed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excellent.
Thank you.
So I do want to take some time at the end to answer any questions you have, but good segue into the remaining presentation. Talking about unmet needs, I would say a year ago, that would be an unmet need, having a program like JMG that can cater to the specific needs of students that we have, offer more experiential learning, community-based connections. So programming like that, I think, is a need for the middle school when we compare that to some of the resources that are available at the high school. So I'm really happy to have that. That's going to be a line item that you'll see in addition to my budget this year. We're still figuring out what that cost will actually be to the district. It is a reduced cost. It's a great value. So essentially, I'm having an additional teacher at the school without paying the full cost of that teacher. And as you can see, the programming that's provided. And this is year one. Fernando's a great addition. He's a great employee. You can see his. You can tell by watching him present his relationship with kids. So it's not only about having the right program, but it's also having the right person leading that program for the school. So I have some materials to pass out. Given time, I'll try to briefly go over things for you, just to provide kind of an overview of what's been going on at Windham Middle School. What I want to start with, something sad, but also there's a positive piece of that. As you all know, we suffered a loss at the middle school prior to Christmas, and I bring that up from a standpoint of a proud piece for me, being the principal in a time that was really challenging. Our kids were fantastic. Our kids supported each other. They supported teachers. Central office between Chris, Sandy, Christine, Lisa, everybody coming to the school to help support the school. So I don't mean to bring that up to bring a piece of sadness, but I want you to understand the impact that has on the school, and also the response of our kids, our parents, our community, all of the outreach to help us through that. And I think that's something important to highlight, that as a community, we share successes together, and we also share hardships together. And I think that was, as sad as the event was and as tragic as that was, I thought it brought us closer. Made me feel great to be a part of the community, and I appreciate all of your support with that as well. Some things, some random updates. We've had some changes in our cell phone rules, and that was to try to keep on top of the ever-growing technology in kids' hands. And many of you, as parents of kids at my school, might have noticed some of those changes. Essentially, when we went from rules around cell phones that said you can carry them with you, but just don't have them out, to really those need to be put away for the entire school day. That's been very well supported by the community. I haven't had any parents that argue about not having a cell phone on them for distractibility purposes. There have been a few parents parents with just concerns about wanting to be able to reach their child in times of emergency, which is hard, but very successful overall. I feel like it's made a big impact in a positive way in the learning environment within the school. I feel like for students, it does offer a little bit of a balance for them to be away from their phone for a little bit of time and not be attached to that. And teachers really, they like the change. It's a welcome change. A lot of kids, I feel some of their comments have been around not having that pressure of worrying about kind of who's texting them or what's being put on social media during school because they don't have access to it. Kids have been great for the most part. We still have a few sneaky 8th graders who like to keep them in their pockets during the school day, but we find that out eventually. Moving on, one of the handouts that I gave you is entitled Executive Functioning. And I think you've been hearing more and more about that. We think a lot about our work in schools in terms of Tier 1 supports that we offer all kids, including behavioral supports and academic supports. We got to the point with our middle school students that executive functioning became something that we realized in analyzing that we did not have a Tier 1 system of supports for students when it came to organization. And most of you as middle school parents can probably attest to how disorganized middle school students are, how difficult it is to keep up with 4, 5, 6 teachers in the classwork as compared to elementary schools. So essentially what we put in place is that teachers devote time to executive functioning daily. What that looks like on a Tier 1 level is that we have a 14 pocket folder. There's a lot. We provide that for kids, the first one. To help organize based off of the subject areas. Teachers set those up in a way, and essentially what it is there's a lot of oversight, there's a lot of direction and instruction for kids as far as where to put papers, how to keep track of those, use of an agenda book for planning, and then when we get into longer range assignments and projects is helping students break those down, helping them estimate time, and correct some thinking errors around that. I think overall it's been a success. Again, 8th graders are a little bit of a harder group to sell something new to because they haven't had that before. Ideally, what we want is to be able to train students to provide them with a system that they can use in high school to keep themselves organized. They may not choose to use our system when they get to high school, but over 3 years at Windham Middle School, our thought and our belief is that they'll go to the high school knowing this is how I can keep track of my papers, my work, a system that they know. I think we were too fragmented before. We had different teachers doing different things, and I think that was hard for consistency for kids as we move up from 6th, 7th to 8th grade. Any questions about that? I don't want to just run through everything, but I want to be conscious of time as well. Project-based learning is something that continues at Windham Middle School. Many of you came, and I appreciate your support last year coming to many of the culminating events. There was a culminating event tonight in 6th grade, the Franzoni Di Donato team around water. One of the flyers or papers that I handed out was project-based learning event that happened last year, Taking Back Maine's Future. I wanted to highlight that. We're going to be on the national stage. So we're invited by Laura Morris from BTI, who will be presenting in a little bit. She was able to provide the funding for some of our staff members to go to Washington, D.C. to present this project-based learning. So that'll be a nice spot of praise for Windham Middle School, landing on the national stage with that work. And so this is just an example of some of the work that we've done in the past and that will continue at Windham Middle School. But that's a highlight for us, I think a strong point with the creativity, the connections to community, the positive press that it brings to the school. So I know that was talked about last year, and I didn't want you all to think that was a one and done type of deal for us. Some other things, we've started a high school mentoring program, largely successful compared to last year. Last year we had one mentor in the high school coming over. Phil and I had been working on that quite a bit, and part of that is to bring up Lynette Haynes, and I can't, Chris, I don't know if you can help me with her job title because I think that's changed a little bit, but
it's really community outreach and coordination.
So she's been assisting with that with us. Basically what Lynette will do at the high school is she will farm the mentors train them, get them set up, being ready to mentor our kids. At our school, we find the students that would benefit most from having a mentor. We have 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students, all a part of that. We're getting up to 10, 12, 15 students, and it's really exciting to see more students be available at the high school, and also the connections that they're making with our students. And that's, again, just that extra support for kids, modeling for them, talking about the future, having them realize what it is they can achieve in high school, someone else to talk to them about some challenges that might be going on, be it social or be it academic. So that's been a great highlight for the school this year. Some of the work that we've been doing in terms of the vision is around differentiating instruction. And so this particular book is a book that the staff is doing a book study of. So we do readings every month, and then we have professional development that's based around that. And that's really about figuring out the individual needs of kids, and really being able to understand how to implement different types of instruction within the classroom. And so that's a highlight for us. It's some really good work, some challenging work. I think it will push us towards being able to meet more students' needs, focusing on Tier 1 supports for behavior, just like Kyle has been in terms of reducing the amount of office referrals, increasing the amount of time that students spend in class on task and being instructed is really important to us, stuff that we continue to work on, as well as academic Tier 1 supports. Things that we do in the classroom so that all students can be successful. We call it accommodations for all, which is really just good teaching practices. So that's just a real quick, brief overview of some of the stuff that we're doing.
Wow.
That was really fast.
Real quickly on the executive functioning, awesome, thank you.
Little late.
Well, you know, it's important, so I'm excited that you're doing it. Any talk with Mrs. Danini about supporting you down the grades a little bit?
I think that might be coming.
Yeah.
I think it's a good conversation to have
Yeah.
about where that falls in line. It feels weird as a middle school principal to be sort of, dictating what the grades below us do. However, at the same time, there is this sense of, especially when Mr. Howe was the high school principal, is what is he looking for in our 9th graders? What are the skills? What are the competencies that he wants students to be able to have to be successful in backwards planning? And so I do think there's a lot of leverage around consistency and fidelity when it comes to curriculum, when it comes to executive functioning. I think all those things can help students. That is on the radar for me.
I know Mrs. Peavy's kind of starts it in the elementary end of it, and they're looking for people that they're going to help with interventions or things like that. That's why I throw it out, because maybe she may be able to add something to it, your conversations as they go forward. But awesome, thank you.
And some of it is not just the organizational system, but also having teachers understand how to teach that within the classroom. Little tricks we can do. I talk to parents about at home, and I try to do with my own son about when he comes home, what homework does he have? How long does he think it's going to take him to do it? Why would he choose to do science that's due in 2 weeks over math that's due tomorrow? Trying to correct some of those thinking errors. A lot of our students have a hard time estimating how long something's going to take them. As adults, those are also things for us as adults that we may not be strong in, which is hard for us to model to our kids. And so getting everybody on the same page about that, making sure that we take the time with students to really break assignments down into pieces that they can manage, and help them plan out their day. The simple use of the agenda book to put down when they have a sports practice, and also to think about, all right, if I have homework this week but I have sports on Wednesday, when can I do that? And these are all things that we are required to do in our own jobs and our own daily lives that would be helpful for them to get caught up to speed on really quickly.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Kate?
Drew, on the mentoring, do the students get trained, the high school students?
Yeah.
There's a training component?
They do. So what we talk about, and we just talked about today, the first meeting is really awkward.
Yeah.
Right? As you would imagine, you're like, all right, here's this person I never met before, and they're going to go talk with you. But I can tell you, after the first awkward meeting, all the kids that have done that, we get consent from parents about that. We're very explicit that this isn't about counseling or providing social work services. It's really about making another connection, making another relationship, especially for our students that are 8th graders going on to high school next year, having a face there that they know that they can connect with. When we get into spring of this year, doing some tours for them so that the high school doesn't seem to be such a foreign place, I think would be helpful. But yes, they get some training with that. And then there's some on-the-job training too about, hey, here's some things, here's some answers I have for you, and oh, wait a minute, I gotta tell somebody else about this one. How can you help them with that?
I really love it because, as we know, the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade can be rough for a lot of kiddos. So this is a nice addition to your programming.
Phil and I think our dream would probably be to have every 8th grader connected with a high schooler, but we're not there yet, and I think we're building on that program, and we're working with our kids that I think need that support the most going forward for whatever reason.
Right. Thank you for doing that. I'm impressed.
You're welcome. Off the hook.
You're off the hook. Run.
Thank you, off the hook.
Thank
Good
you.
job. Thanks, Drew. Thank you very much. Thanks to all of
Yeah, thank you guys all for.
Thanks, everybody.
So am I to understand that we don't have any capabilities for PowerPoints?
Well, we probably do. We just.
We didn't know it.
We didn't
Is that-
Yeah, we didn't. Okay, why don't we take a 5-minute break and then you can set that up, okay?
Yay, I have my PowerPoint.
Oh, I can stand up. That would be bad. How are you?
Good evening. Thank you so much for letting me come. My name is Laura Morris. I'm the director of Be the Influence, which is a coalition of community members that come together and really try to keep youth off drugs, which is a big uphill climb right now. So we really appreciate any opportunity to talk to influential people like you because you're such a fantastic part of the process. Vaping is a tsunami that has been hitting our schools at a very scary rate. And so what we want to do tonight is just educate you a little bit on what the heck it is, because I don't even think adults have any idea how dangerous these products are and how they're being targeted to young people. And then also just trying to get the word out, so any help that we can get with that afterwards. So let's just kind of say, how much do we know about vaping? You guys know a lot about vaping? The vaping products? Basically. All right, so let's try a little game here then, just to like warm things up a little bit. And you do get a Be the Influence t-shirt if you answer the question correctly. So just raise your hand, we'll do it like that. It's true, false questions, okay?
Raise your hand in public.
All right, well then you're the first to go. All right, true or false? One vape Juul product has the equivalent of 15 cigarettes worth of nicotine.
True.
True.
You think that's true?
Yeah.
Okay. You're wrong. It's actually the same as a whole pack of cigarettes. One
See, I don't even
Juul.
know how much
How
is
much
in
in
a
a
pack.
pack?
I thought 15 was in a
How
pack.
many in the pack?
How much nicotine?
No, how many
How many
cigarettes?
how many
Oh,
cigarettes?
probably like 25, 20, yeah, 20.
Okay, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there
It's
you
not
go.
15.
Yeah, it's not 15, 20. It's more, that's my point. But I think that you should get a t-shirt anyway, so it's coming your way.
I hope that's
There we
medium
go.
because that's my size.
Well, sons, daughters, whoever you have, get them on. All right, so the second one, is someone else want to take a stab at another?
No, I'm
I wanna
nervous.
get the
question
first. Okay.
Can I call on people?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I want the question.
How about Kate? You were raising your hand before.
What is the question?
Well, I'm going to tell you. Just want to see if you volunteer first. Okay, so butane is one of the ingredients that would be found in vaping products.
Butane. Sounds awful, so I'm going to say yes.
You are so right. There we go. Another
You get-
t-shirt coming your way. Sorry about that. We do this in lieu of time. Okay, let's see. We're going to move on. I do have another t-shirt if somebody says anything really incredibly smart here tonight. So,
Well, I put that one away.
I want to get you out of here on time. So do you guys remember these? I love that this crowd has some people that might be my age here. We know that tobacco kills 3,000 people a day. It's one of the #1 killers of all time. It took us 50 years to finally understand, yes, we know tobacco products are bad. And that's how they got us way years ago. They marketed it to us. So you remember the Joe Camel? Which is a cartoon character that appealed to kids, got outlawed because it appeals to kids. Okay, we had doctors who were on ads that said, smoke Camels, it's better than any other cigarette. Or you know what, smoke while you're pregnant because then you'll have a lower birth weight baby and then it'll be easier to have childbirth. And this is what our doctors were saying. We had beautiful celebrities and they made all of these products look really fun and healthy and wonderful, and they duped us a long time ago. What's happening now is the exact same thing with vaping products, and they're targeting our youth more than anybody. So here you have beautiful Elizabeth, Jenny McCarthy, freedom to have a cigarette without guilt. These are real ads. Take pride in the flavor. You even see a Camel on that again. Look at the flavors, Kool-Aid, cotton candy. So they're doing all of the same things in their marketing. And I would even venture to say that we have a vaping shop here that has a sign that is a cartoon character. And if you ask kids in the schools, does anybody know where that vape shop is? They all know it. They all get it. They think it's just innocent, fun stuff. So there is no jurisdiction on how we're targeting these kids. So what is vaping? The terms are juice, vaping, juuling, ENDS, ENDS is electronic nicotine delivery system, and they're everywhere. They look like this. They're vape pens, so they're battery operated. There's a battery. You put the liquid, that's in that little vial. You put it in there, it heats it up, and you vape it through your mouth, and that's basically how they all work. Some can be bigger. This is the one that can be combustible. This one uses actual loose leaf tobacco, and the Juuls are the things that are really scaring us. So Juuls are not so cool, and as we said, 200 puffs is 59 milligrams of nicotine. The kids are attracted to these. They're using them like crazy. I would like to have Phil just speak a little bit as to what's going on in the high school with these.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, we've talked over the course of the last few years about this increase in the amount of Juuls. So we've talked, and that's been reflected in some of our policy changes that we've made recently. So I brought some of the signs for you to see that we've been rewarded for our hard work in our district to get some free signage, thanks to Laura and BTI as well with that. So we see this is, I mean, it's a daily occurrence that, you know, this is out there. The number of Juuls that we've confiscated has gone down in the last few months, which has kind of been a good thing, but it's still there. It's just different ways it's marketed differently. Kids can buy sweatshirts that have, you know, little sleeves in it that you can hide stuff in, and it's a whole market for this product, and it's, I mean, there's no other reason for it to be sneaky. If you're an adult, there's no reason to hide it, right? So it's all geared towards kids and them, and so they can get on Amazon, they can buy the stuff. At one point last year, you could sign up, and all you needed was a birth date to get on, and they would ship you a free one. So there was a lot of things that you could, for kids to get their hands on it. And it's still a market. I know there's been some legislation recently to change things, so they're not supposed to be producing the different flavors of the Juul pods in hopes that that would kind of maybe deter kids. But we've got kids that come down. Recently, one of our social workers has said, you know, he said 5 students come to him saying, listen, I can't quit, I want help, can you get me help? So
5
we've,
students in 2 weeks.
yeah, so it's been, so kids are recognizing it. I think a lot of the work that's been happening, especially, you know, we've got kids at the middle school where BTI does a lot of work with the youth engagement there. Our kids at the high school go down and speak to them about it. They teach lessons in our freshman focus about this as well. Some of the upperclassmen do. So it's really, we're trying to educate as much as possible about this, so the kids make that decision when somebody hands that to them. They can make an educated decision, say, I really shouldn't do this. So it's a huge challenge. The bathrooms are the, you know, that's where it's kind of hides out at these days in our building. So we try to be as diligent as possible. I'm in and out of bathrooms more than I ever care to be. Mr. Howell can attest to that. So it's, you know, and we've changed some things around. So every now and then you know, we've got some locks on some bathrooms now, which was something we've been planning to do anyway. So now it's, if there's some concerns, we watch kids. You know, I'm trying to keep an eye on as much as possible as I can all the time. Officer Fournier as well, kind of keep an eye on the camera so we can kind of. And teachers are great. Teachers are great about helping us out. They're like, hey, something just happened in class. This kid's gone to the bathroom for the last 3 weeks at 8:05 every day. I'm not sure what's going on, but it's a consistent thing that's happening. Just, you know, just letting you know. So for us, it's been helpful to kind of have conversations with kids and say, why are you going to the bathroom at 8:05 every day? Is there something we need to know or something we can help you with? So there's a lot to it. It's complicated. And it's just we're constantly in an uphill battle. And the sad part is really, you know, we're like a few years behind everything in terms of like getting the help in place to help kids. You know, so it's such a big problem, and we've got kids coming to ask for help, but we really don't have, there's not a ton of resources in Cumberland County even for kids to get access to help and support. So I'm working with Laura on some stuff, and I'm also working with the Opportunity Alliance folks about, they have a SERP program, student integration and reintegration program, which is basically geared towards drugs, but we're talking about how we can include tobacco in that as well. So we're trying to do a lot of things to help educate not only the kids, but try to educate parents as much too, because I was just listening to the radio the other day, and there was an ad for Juul on the middle of a sports broadcast, which I thought was illegal, but I don't know, maybe there's some loophole in that legislation somewhere that they found, so it's out there. So I didn't mean to take over.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, it's happening right here, and we see it every single day. 78% increase of youth use that they're seeing across the nation with these, because they're being targeted in this way. And so one question would be, there are about 56 different flavors in vaping products. 56. Who thinks that's true or false?
False.
8,000 different types of flavors. And it is bubble gum, and it is candy flavors. So
I cheated. I went to see
we know who they're targeting. So what is in the vapor, that little liquid? Sometimes, because it's liquid, they can even hide marijuana and different types of other substances. But basically, if you went around the room and you try to even read some of those things, toluene, ecazolala, benzene, you don't even know what half of them are. And that's what's in the vapes. So charcoal, lighter fluid, batteries, some things that we use for preservatives, rubber, metal, petroleum. Do we really want that going into the lungs of these young, underdeveloped kids? What is it doing to the brain? Nicotine is one of the most addictive drugs of all time, more addictive than heroin, actually. And so it's overstimulating the dopamine, the receptors are not connecting, and so they're getting addicted very quickly. So if you consider that they're doing it for fun, and then they're going into the office, 5 kids, over 2 weeks saying, we're addicted and we don't know what to do about it, it's a scary, scary thing. On the body, it makes their heart beat faster, trouble breathing, damage to the lungs, and acid reflux. So very scary. For these young kids with these underdeveloped brains, the risks of what it's doing to their brain, addiction, and the other stuff we talked about. So, and I'm going to go over this really fast because that's kind of the same thing. So who's in charge? The industry is in charge. And we have a problem with getting the information out to parents. I think they're doing a great job in the schools with the kids as much as we can. We're educating as much as we can. But we just need voices talking to parents and understanding that it's not okay when your child comes home or is using these cute little things because it is not innocent. There's absolutely no ban. There's nothing we can do to regulate them like we did tobacco. So I don't know if, as a school board, let's not be fooled again. We have to monitor this youth use, and then what can we do? We just have to get the word out. Right now there is some legislation. I'm just going to give you a copy of these that you can look at. It's Title 22 and then 152, some legislations where they're trying to ban it in all schools. And something like a letter from a school board, I think, would make a huge difference because they really want to see the school districts embrace this legislature and see it go through.
I think one of the issues with that piece of legislation, though, is there's actually, much like tobacco, there's not a lot of teeth actually attached to it. Basically, it's saying that you're going to ban electronic substances and the use of electronic vaping substances within schools, but it doesn't go to that next step of saying, so then what actually happens?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Much like what happened with tobacco, it's, districts have the right to trespass people if they're using tobacco in their facilities, but beyond that, so for student, then what's the teeth or the penalty or what it actually is going to prevent? And I know a lot of this is going to be through helping kids, but basically that's just a recognition of a piece of language and doesn't go to that next.
Do we have the authority as a board, though, to, in a policy?
You do, and actually the policy that this board did last year to actually address what was happening with e-devices is probably far, far ahead of what's happening in other districts as far as recognizing what the issue is and then putting in some tangible steps as far as what happens for the different pieces. And Phil can talk more about how that's actually impacted this year.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely made a difference. I've talked to other different districts, other APs and principals about our policy because they're kind of like, we're all in the same boat. They know we've gone through a change already, so they're kind of looking at us like, all right, what did you guys put in place? How is that working? Right now, for us, it's working fairly well. It's a progressive piece, so each time there's more supports added along the way. Like I said before, there are limited supports, only in our building, but in the community as well. So that's a challenge. But we're working around it. It's a learning process for us too, because it's how do we go around? It's the first time we've had a student that's gotten to the point where he said to meet with Mr. Prince about this behavior. So there's been some conversations around what do we do with this, and and it's just kind of working through the process slowly and kind of thoughtfully and working with families around how to support them with this problem. Because oftentimes for me, it's whenever I catch a student with this, I've talked to the parent on the phone, and like, I've seen that, and it's been in their computer, this little charger that goes to the Juul, it's been in their computer. I didn't realize that. I thought it was a thumb drive or a little fob for a mouse or whatever. And I'm like, no, that's the charger for the device your child is using. And so I send them literature. I just send them a bunch of, a couple of brief one-page information for them to look over, call me with questions, happy to meet with you, sit down with you, talk about it. And so for me, it's to try to educate those parents as much as possible. But the policy really has been pretty helpful, I think. Day one of school, I sat in front of each grade level and said, it's a new game. This is what you need to be aware of as we go forward. The policies change, and it sticks with you. If you have a violation your freshman year or your senior year, there's consequences to that, and it just, it increases each time. So, but we're going to help support you and help you along the way as well. So,
I keep hearing about the bathrooms.
Yep.
And in fact, the presentation at the middle school that came up, it was a predominant discussion how students were afraid to go to the bathroom during the day because there was so much vaping going on. And are there like smoke alarms or vaping alarms? I mean, I know that sounds stupid, but
no, there are things out there. I mean, there's technology is coming around to that. Expensive stuff. Yep. Kids come up to me and ask me, about those types of things. Do we have those in the bathroom? Well, what do you think? And it's just they walk off. But it's for us, it's a challenge. That's why, like I said, I'm in and out of the bathrooms. Ms. Mishu, Mr. Karen, Officer Fournier. We try to be out. Teachers. Tons of teachers go in and they get, it's easy to see if you see 5, 6 kids all at one group walk into the bathroom, okay, something's up, and we can kind of dig in a little bit. So we try to do the best we can. It's hard to eliminate, but there is certainly that issue.
Yeah, you've done a good job with environmental screening, though, that they kind of work with together that way. But we also, I just sent it to you, there are some cessation programs that the counselors can do one-on-one with these kids who are coming in with concerns. They're about an hour in length, and they can just give them something to start with. But, of course, the key is not to get them to start ever to begin with. So the tobacco helpline, every time we do a presentation, we leave that behind, and Maine Health has a whole tobacco division, and so all the schools are dealing with this. This is not just Windham Raymond. It's just, like I said, it's like a tsunami, and it's a really concerning thing. But I think what we need to do is zero in on these companies who are allowed to target kids.
Yeah, it's a big challenge. I mean, I'm going to a meeting next Thursday with a bunch of assistant principals, and that's like the #1 topic on our agenda is, what are you doing around this, and how are you combating not only the challenge of the kids, but the challenges within the community with this stuff, because there's so much legislation moving through, whether it's the storefronts that are selling marijuana products to grows that are going on within the communities, all those types of things that are starting to really kind of take hold, and access is becoming a lot easier for some things for kids. So.
There is a piece on CBS just did a piece on that about a kid that was an Eagle Scout and got into the Juul, and he was up to $150+ a week selling his shoes that his parents bought him.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyways, it was quite a neat story.
Yeah.
He got. Did you see that?
Yep.
It was pretty good.
Well, one of the stories in the high school was a young girl who was academically fantastic. She was going on to college. She had saved about $2,000, and by the end of whatever, she just started using Juul. She spent $1,400 and didn't have her plane ticket to go abroad to study. So, I mean, it's overwhelmingly sad and difficult. And if you talk to the kids in the high school, lots are using. It's not just, the Myers report would say like 14.9% or whatever, but that's not accurate. And it does wean over to the whole marijuana program, which I could do an hour and a half on that one. Marijuana is going to be a huge problem for access to youth in our community.
Our BTI youth groups are doing a good job of educating each other and supporting each other and trying to get the word out. I mean, we had a retreat earlier this year, and the kids came up with a good kind of strategic plan for the high school to work on, how it can support the middle schools. So it's pretty good stuff. Some of that stuff we've worked with Mr. Howell on around tip lines and different types of search things we can have for kids' computers to try to limit access to things. We've got a lot of stuff that we're working on kind of in the behind the scenes. That's great stuff. That'll help us support kids around substances and around social emotional health issues as well.
Yeah, and I can, how does your power help? I can think of just one thing. I'd like to go to that one store and just very nicely say, I hope you understand the connotation of your sign and how it makes children believe that it's an innocent thing, social norm. So sometimes just like letters from people that would be in positions like yours, just saying the school board is behind us, looking into this matter. We can't
Letters
be very...
to whom? Letters to the
like if
store
it was
or-
this store owner.
Right.
Yeah. But it's difficult. There's political fine lines, and
Sure.
we certainly don't want to ostracize anybody. But if you can change the physical design of something, then we're saving our children too. So.
Go ahead. Kate.
Drew, is there anything you might add for the middle school?
Thank you.
Yeah, they're starting as early as 12.
So in terms of number of incidents, we're probably up to about 5 this year. I think, to be honest, I think that's tip of the iceberg. And so part of it is what Phil talked about, is being able to search for those types of things, and based off of our scope of search and how easy they are to conceal. That part can be a challenge. So we hear a lot about it. We follow up with that. Kim and I have been cracking down a lot more on making sure that we're in the bathrooms, we're following up on leads, that we're searching kids. I think word gets out. Some common things that I find when we talk with kids is, one is absolutely what Laura has talked about, is that the kids, they got the messages about cigarettes, and they'll tell you they won't smoke a cigarette because it's gross. They've got that down, so that worked. But then what we don't have down is the education around how addictive Juuls are specifically. And so a lot of parents don't understand that. And so a couple things that I've found with the kids that we've worked with, one is access to them. And that access will typically come from a parent in the household or an older brother or sister. A lot of our kids are getting that from high school brothers and sisters. So it's there, so they can get that without having to go purchase it. And then 2, I think, is around the modeling. So the modeling of older brothers and sisters, and also the modeling of adults. In many situations, our kids that are using them, the parents had purchased that for them. And so, well, we'll just put water in it, or not really understanding the effects. Oh, just it's fine. Just take a hit. Just don't do a lot of that. But in terms of how addictive that is, I worry about many of our middle school kids being addicted after a short period of time. None of them have really admitted to that, but when they talk about how often they're doing it, once, twice a week, it's hard to believe that isn't having an impact on them. So I think twofold. One is getting kids the support, but then, like Phil talked about, also understanding what the consequences are. And so we follow the policy with that. I do think the policy is effective. It's helpful to get the word out so kids understand that it's not a free-for-all at the middle school, that there are consequences that will come with that. But we spend a lot of administration resources on that. A search is not something that can be done in a couple of minutes. There's phone calls, there's paperwork, other things involved with the investigations, looking at video cameras, those types of things that really, they encompass a lot of the school day. And I think they're disruptive to the kids that are going through that process. The biggest thing I don't like is kids feeling uncomfortable about the spaces that they go to use. Right. Thankfully, we have some private, some single-use restrooms. When we talk about the middle school project and the design for that, there'll be a lot of things that are around privacy and making sure that I think that would alleviate some of the social parameters around that. Typically, if they know they can't go with a friend to do that, it may alleviate doing that in school more often. But we have kids, that can't make it through the day because they're addicted.
Right. And I do think we need to mention Eliza Adams has done a fantastic job in her health class. They did a project on vaping, so the kids knew all of these facts inside and out, and they were able to present it to Bill Diamond, who was it? Patrick Corey. Yep, the American Cancer Society, the Heart Association, and a panel discussion, and basically they came to the library and said, we want to hear what you have to say, and now give us some ideas. We'll take it and try to get some bills passed, try to do some legislation. So that was a really huge, wonderful effort. And there are billboards up in your middle school that are all vaping related that the Be the Influence team does there. And so I think they really we're trying with the education wherever we are, but it's just so overwhelming that any help we can get getting the word out to the community and just people in general, really important.
So once you're addicted to a Juul, is it the same as being addicted to a cigarette, and
Nicotine.
quitting is the same? Same
Nicotine
process?
Yeah, and I will say, I used to do respiratory care, but anything that's in your lungs that is not oxygen is ruining your ability for it to breathe, basically. And that there's so many toxins, and it's oil-based, that adhere to the lungs, that it's not just the nicotine that is really ruining their capacity to even just breathe well and have that elasticity. So almost in a way worse than tobacco products, because it's an oil-based product.
So I just worry that the resource piece, and I remember when we were talking about the policy, there was a component in there for resources, and what I'm hearing is they're very limited. So if you have a child that's addicted to a Juul, do you give them a patch, or?
It is this, it's a, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say for us, I mean, it's not at that point necessarily, but what we've worked with is our day one resource that comes once a week. She's great. She's got a ton of kids waiting to meet with her, and we, slip them in to meet with her. It's a once a week thing. That's the kind of the direct service that they can provide. We can provide, and then we work with families too, or doctors if we need to. I think that's something maybe up for further discussion about, patches or nicotine gums, things like that. I just don't.
It is.
But you definitely could use that product because it steps you off.
Right.
I'm an ex-smoker, so I went through that process, and it does.
But that's a nicotine-based product.
Correct. Yeah, that's why I don't know where
It
this.
steps you down.
Right. I don't know if that's even allowed.
Well,
That's
yeah,
why I think
this
it's a
age,
policy
you're right.
challenge there that I wouldn't know.
I'm just speaking from I have
Yeah,
my
yeah.
parent hat on, and I have a kid, which I don't, all right? But I have a kid who is addicted. Other than calling the hotline, I just would like to know what I could do.
But it is a lot of the same process, though. It's the same kind of way that worked on nicotine. This is almost the same process of withdrawal and what do you do alternatively, and getting your brain to think about other things.
Had to get used to that.
Well, that's it. I have
changing your habits.
I have gum and lollipops in my office that some kids that are working on that. They stop by and grab a handful and take it with them. It's better than the alternative. So.
Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, can I ask a question? Phil, earlier you mentioned how the number of confiscated items has been going down. I'm just curious, what happens with those confiscated items?
Officer Fournier takes those items that we confiscate, and then at that point it's kind of in his hands. Sometimes in previous years parents would come in and pick them up because we, from him, not from us. So we turn them over to him, and then most of the time now they stay with him. He's got quite a collection. So
I think one of the most disappointing things that we've seen is that we've had parents demanding to come in and pick things up and then giving them right back to their teens.
Right.
And a cycle starts. And so I know Officer Fournier has changed a little bit as far as the amount of time that he is willing to, or that he's going to hold on to that before returning it back to a household. So it doesn't just continue to be unchained. But,
Well, I'm just wondering, getting back to your mention of some sort of letter of support from the board, whether it's for that legislation or not, if there's something maybe you could draft and send to us, and we could just, I'm not saying, I'm clearly not making the decision for the whole board, but at least seeing something that we may be able to stand behind. And
Yeah, I could put something together, and it's meant to be very short and sweet. It's really just to say, I know I'm in prevention and I'm coming in and I'm going to be seen as the bad guy, but the community and people at the top really are embracing the fact that we need to do something about this.
I would also suggest too that when the Ed Committee looks at that bill, that you would be a wonderful person to testify.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm not allowed to lobby.
But it's not lobbying. It's not lobbying.
I could do education.
Yeah, you're just educating them.
Yeah,
I would definitely suggest that. I keep track of what goes in front of the Ed Committee for my job, so if I see it, I will. You may be getting an email that says.
Hey, there's
Excellent.
my card.
Yeah.
I love the
I
opportunity
think
to
you would
speak
do it
anywhere.
really, really good, and it wouldn't be. Yeah, you'd just be educating them. There'd be no lobbying.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, I would love to. Yeah, we just can't get the word out enough, and it is the parents in the community that.
Getting back to the letter, is it something that we could give to all of the businesses in Wyndham and Raymond that sell jewels or
Sure.
similar things, so that we wouldn't be, we're not signaling
Correct, yeah.
Yeah,
out
that's
one
not a bad
particular.
idea. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's
Yeah.
pursue that then,
Okay.
if you can.
Yeah, I'll draft something up and maybe with the advice of
Yep.
my leadership team. And yeah, thank you so much. I think that would make a big difference.
Yeah, and I'd just like to say that this is an issue that I'm very concerned about, and it's huge. I mean, what makes us unique is that, you know, the kids are at an age right now where they're trying to test boundaries, and, you know, that's always been the case. That's been human nature. But, you know, back when it was just cigarettes, that's harder to get away with. You know, kids want to see what they can get away with. You know, let's just try this. And, you know, cigarettes, it's a visual thing, it's a smell thing, and these things.
It's harsher on the throat. This stuff is like candy and.
This stuff, I mean, it's much easier to get away with it,
Yes,
and that's
for
why
sure.
we're seeing it across a broad. You know, this affects anybody. Your honor students, your.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so anything that we can do as a board to enact policy, yeah, I'm all for it.
Me too.
I think you get no argument from any of us.
So if I were to put something together, I'd shoot it to maybe Chris? Okay.
Yeah, we'll make sure it makes it.
Great.
Thank you very,
Awesome.
very
Thank you,
much.
folks.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to all
And
of
when you want, we'll come in and tell you about the marijuana problems as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
I'll entertain a motion about policies.
I make a motion to approve the second reading of policy JLFA, child abuse and neglect.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any public comment? Any board discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. I would like to just give you a little bit of information about our school board goals. And we, as you know, we had 3 goals to start our school year. One is about evaluation guidelines, the first one, and Mr. Prince will be talking about those.
I brought some things tonight.
And you
if
brought
want.
some things, okay,
If we want to go ahead and do that.
sure.
So everyone could take.
Although you look like Mr. Howell.
Right.
Always be prepared, right?
Right.
Exactly, I love it.
So I know as one of the pieces of board goals is to look at the evaluation tool and what was being used for, specifically in this case, the senior administrators from the district. The principals already have an evaluation tool that's been put into place. And so the tool that we're using for this year is an adaptation that we took, and this is a kind of a pliable tool. It's used in the state of Massachusetts for superintendents, but it also can be adapted for assistant superintendents, for curriculum directors, for special ed directors. And it really has 4 domains: instructional leadership, management and operations, family and community engagement, and professional culture. Underneath each one of those domains, there's individual standards, and there's also performance indicators. And so what we've done as an administrative group, and that would be Lisa, Christine, and myself, is we look through those domains, we look through those indicators, and we look through those standards for which one's actually matched up with us. Because there's things that I do in my position that Christine never does, and there's things that Lisa does that I don't do. And so based upon those, we then worked with Sandy on our individual goals, and then also looked at what areas that we'd be individually evaluated at. So what I've given you in your packet And I'm going to start, first of all, it says Assistant Superintendent Rubric at a Glance. And in that packet has the domains, standards and indicators in which Sandy will be evaluating me this year. And also has my 2 goals on the bottom, which is increase my knowledge of budget process, district financial practices, and then school construction process. The next page has Christine, what she's going to be evaluated in, and as far as her goals for this year and what evidence that she'll be looking to produce for Sandy. And then lastly, you also have Lisa's, which is Director of Student Services, and what her goals are this year and what it is that she's going to be working on. The second piece that I provided for all of you is the actual rubric, and it has in there, again, the domains, the standards, and the indicators, and what's considered to be proficient. And of course, what all 3 of us are going to be looking for is what's exemplary, because we're 3 type A personalities that want to make sure that we're doing our absolute best.
You said it, not us.
News to us.
You said it, not us.
And so gives you an idea of what we have decided on with working with Mr. Prince in our goal setting process. And so as recommendations come to you as a school committee based upon our performance, and when it comes time to negotiate, whether it be salary increases or other pieces, this will be some additional information that Mr. Prince can share with you that I think will help to answer some of your questions that you might have.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is specific to me. There's another one that's specific to Christine, and there's another one specific to Lisa. We basically just picked which ones were germane to us. So I know that was goal 1.
Exemplary job.
Yeah, that's
And
great.
That's what we're looking for.
That's exactly it. And it gives us a way to make some judgments later on, as you said. Any questions?
No, thank you. This is
Okay,
perfect.
that's really good. Okay, the second goal is what is the vision for long-term facilities in the RSU, and that's something that we will be looking at through the rest of this year. And we have, did you want to talk about the visioning?
Yeah, there's a couple pieces that are to this. First of all, we have sent out I'm going to back up a little bit farther. As many of you know, we've been placed as number 5 on the state priority list for a new middle school. Does not mean that we've been put on the approved list. It means that we've been put on the priority list. And there'll be some other pieces of information, most likely coming in June, that will then outline when could it be anticipated that we will move from priority to approved. I know I've talked to you before about this, but the public may not be aware. If you want to build a school using state funds, it's a 22-step process. We're on step 3. So one of the processes that takes place when you are finally approved is what's called an educational specifications or an educational visioning process, in which you'd work with a consultant and you'd have the opportunity to, as a community, much like a strategic planning process, what do you want in this building? How's it going to serve the communities? What is our target population that we're looking there? And really it's looking at how do we not only service the kids that are in the building, but also how do we service community members? Because this is going to be a community building that we obviously want to have used all the time. And so working with our architect, we have 2 choices. We can wait until we receive the phone call from the state to say, this is when you're coming, this is when your bonds are going to be approved, here's your timeline, and you can wait and then start your educational specifications, or under the architect firm that we've used as a district said, if you want to get a jump start on this, you can do that now. And so we've sent out requests for proposals for 2 qualified individuals who have participated in an educational specification process with other districts across the state of Maine, so that we can be fully prepared and maybe even accelerate the construction process a little bit faster once things happen. To go hand in hand with this, I know there's been some interest in the board to look at, what's our overall vision for how we use buildings across the RSU. And so we're looking at a couple different options for that. One is to use the individuals who are doing our educational specifications, because both individuals are trained and qualified and have done that for other districts. There's also an independent organization called the New England School Development Council that you can pay to have come in and do the exact same process. Or, as I've had a chance to be in this position now for 6 months, 7 months, and going through the shelves, one thing that I have found in reading some old documents is that much of building facilities and recommendations and studies have actually, many of them have been done. And you know, there's pieces of these that could just use some updating. But even in this document, which was a middle school facilities, there was a complete elementary study that was done that basically lists the positives and negatives of all of elementary schools, our positives and negatives of the 2 middle schools that we own. It doesn't include anything in the high school. And so a third option that I'm looking at is that can we build upon the work that PDT did for the district so that we're not spending as much money to have someone come in and basically do the exact same study all over again to tell us what we've already paid for back in 2014. So the goal would still be to have some recommendations and some work done across the district by the end of the school year. But again, we may be able to limit the scope with some of our outside individuals just because you have paid as a board to have much of this work done already. But definitely educational specifications completed by the end of the year. And again, maybe even more of a hybrid approach so that we can save some money. Because a facility study is anywhere between $17,000 to $30,000 to have somebody come in and go through. So again, you've paid for part of it. Let's use it.
And that's not paid by the state, that's paid by us, correct?
That's paid by us, that's correct. And even the educational specifications process is paid for by us. Think about it, the give to get is that you are getting a middle school facility that is going to be paid for predominantly out of state funds, which, you know, is kind of like winning Powerball
right.
At that point. It's a great opportunity for the community. And again, as part of this process, it's a chance for us as an RSU to look at all of our facilities issues to make sure that maybe we can address them through the project. So I know those are highly connected to Goal 2, which is some of the facilities pieces. And you know, there's some conversations that I think it's actually kind of nice we're going to be forced to have because we're going to be in the midst of a building project.
Right. So at what point do we need to implement I believe I saw during our last facilities meeting that we needed to implement some type of a building committee, if you will, and it needed to involve 2 board members, 3 members of the general public. I can't remember what else it needed to, the group needed to consist of.
So we really don't need to get it moving until we actually have a better idea as far as when our timeline is going to be.
All right.
I think one of the things we talked about though in the facilities meeting is that it would be good before we hit June to have an idea of who it is that we want to have for membership, because it would be my desire that once we get the green light, that we, you know, are able to at least get the committee going and start tackling some issues. The other thing that we've also started to take a look at, and we have a great planning office that's been helping us already in Windham, which is what parcels are available in the town of Windham for a new middle school that are over 40 acres. And so they've actually given us a parcel map, which we did have a chance to forward on to facilities. Unfortunately, most of those parcels are, many of them are landlocked.
I noticed. I'm like, ooh, that looks good. Oh, there's no access.
We can't get there from
unless we took the power lines.
Right.
That part's not going to happen. So again, there's going to be much more to come on this, but again, it's a pretty exciting thing to know that this is in our future.
Okay, the third goal was a communication goal, consistent communication across the district and with instruction, and that is one that we are going to table for this year and start fleshing it out and really begin with it next school year. So. just to give you information.
Do you mind if I just add one quick little piece of thing? I think that one is a very easy fix, to be honest with you. I honestly feel like if the IT department was able to implement a ticketing system, so you email info@wyndhammiddleschool.org or something like that, you can set the parameters up so that the parent automatically gets an email back saying, we've received your email and we will process it within 24 to 48 hours or whatever. You can actually have specifications put on it. The program is called Freshdesk, and it's I use it at my place of employment, and I think it works really well, and it has an element of accountability. So I think that that's something that maybe Bob Hickey can possibly explore and maybe make a recommendation later on down the line.
I think that's certainly correct about communications.
Yep.
It's a little bit more involved than that. This third goal.
Oh, then maybe I missed the memo then.
Yeah. So we'll.
You missed the communication.
I guess I missed the communication.
So in an effort to be consistent about that, that is certainly something we can pursue for next year. And
Absolutely.
Talk about it.
Okay.
Okay. So now, would anyone like to give me a motion for adjournment?
Wait.
What? Sorry.
Can I just do a quick PSA?
Sure.
Because there's a lot of middle schoolers that have been working for months on the production of Beauty and the Beast.
Oh.
And opening night is tomorrow night. There are 4 shows this weekend and 4 shows next weekend. Thursday night, Friday night, and 2 shows each Saturday. So these kids have been working hard and they are ready to display their talent. So go out and see
Okay.
it.
Both this week and next week?
Yep.
Okay, great. All right, now I will entertain a motion.
I move we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Thank
One of
you.
these days I'm going to oppose.
Tend to drive less as they get projects this year.